All right, Maddie, get down. Come on, down. Good girl. If your kids can't handle anything scary, don't take them to this movie. Hey everybody, Awesome Anthony back here again from Awesome Anthony Productions. Today I'm going to give you another movie review. Today I'm going to talk about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So I might as well start with the things that I liked about the movie, which is a lot because this was actually a pretty good movie and definitely a lot more surprising than I thought it would be. Let me start with the first thing. Though this is still a Marvel movie, it very much feels like a Sam Raimi movie, for better and for worse. For the better parts, this honestly has some of the best cinematography and direction I've seen in any Marvel movie so far. I'm including the ones directed by the Russo brothers, and I'm including Eternals, directed by Academy Award winner Chloe Zhao, and we heard all about how beautiful that movie was going to be, and honestly, the cinematography wasn't really that special. But here, the camera moves! Sam Raimi actually seems like he had creative direction and input and got behind the camera a little bit for this one, and that's awesome for somebody that directs a Marvel movie. I definitely didn't expect any Raimi-isms or anything going in. I thought this was going to be very watered down, typical MCU stuff, something that they wouldn't push too far because they want to appeal to the most general audience. But Raimi comes through a lot in this movie, and if you are familiar with any of his films, whether it's the Evil Dead movies, the original Spider-Man trilogy, you'll definitely feel his style and influence over the entire thing. From the cheeky humor to the intense violence at some parts in a PG-13 movie to the general just straight up horror that he brings in, this whole movie is a f***ing treat for Raimi fans, and I loved it in that aspect. Which brings me to the next thing that I liked, the horror. Yeah, the horror in an MCU movie. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Everybody thought that New Mutants was going to be this horror masterpiece and that it was going to be the thing that finally brings horror into a Marvel movie. And really, that just kind of fell flat. Where the genuine scares come in are in this movie, trust me. One scene in particular is so gruesome and creative that as a horror fan, as a Raimi fan, and as a fan of comics and nerdy stuff in general, that whole scene was just a treat to me. I even jumped and gasped in a few parts, which I was not expecting going into a Doctor Strange sequel. Honestly, this film felt like a multiversal playground for Sam Raimi, where he got to take what he does so well and find really creative ways to use it. Another creative way that he uses all that stuff comes with the next thing that I loved about this movie, the action. Every single action scene is awesome in this film, whether it's the opening that you see in the trailers, Defender Strange with America Chavez running through a different dimension, or fighting Gargantos that you also see in the trailer, and then a few other scenes in this movie that they don't show in the trailers that are either brutally awesome or just so creative and visually inventive that you just can't help but have your eyes glued right to the screen. And the ending climactic action scene, that whole scene felt like a Sam Raimi thing. Like, it almost felt like Evil Dead found its way into the MCU for 10-15 minutes, and I loved it. The next thing I really liked about Doctor Strange were the performances. I know that shouldn't surprise anybody knowing how great of an actor Benedict Cumberbatch is, but he really brought it here. He does a great job in conveying Doctor Strange's false confidence, especially his guilt and regret over everything that happened in Infinity War and Endgame. Even knowing that it was the right decision, he still struggles with that. And then obviously, of course, he just shows his general heroism throughout the film. But what I love is that they gave him kind of a unique arc that we don't usually see in Marvel movies, which was him just kind of admitting to himself maybe he's not as happy as he's putting on every single day. It's nice to see another one of these movies that isn't necessarily just about saving the world, but also about a hero coming to terms with things that they've been struggling with and accepting himself for who he is. Even though he did a great job and had a strong emotional arc in this movie, Elizabeth Olsen is the movie's standout.
I sacrificed everything, and it meant nothing.
It really feels like every moment that she's had in the MCU has been building this long character arc just full of tragedy and cursing and living through a bunch of very horrific things. And it felt like this movie kind of brought that to its logical conclusion, and I was here for it. I know a lot of people are going to be jarred about her transition from reluctant hero to straight up villain, but for those people that were very confused or didn't like it very much, did you even watch WandaVision? Also, I'm sorry if that's a spoiler, but the trailers kind of already hinted that she was going to be the villain.
You break the rules, become a hero. I do it, I become the enemy. It doesn't seem fair.
And they reveal it in the first 25 minutes anyways. So I'm glad that I throw that out there because I just want to say she's probably the best villain we've seen in the MCU in a long time. She has moments where she can be genuinely terrifying, but also moments where she pulls at your heartstrings and makes you want to cry a little bit. Overall though, she's just amazing in every scene she's in. Even when she's delivering some cheesy dialogue, she's still intense and scary. Everybody else does a really good job too. Rachel McAdams actually had a bigger role than I thought she would as Christine Palmer. We don't really see our universe as Christine a lot, but we do see a different universe as Christine for a very big part of the movie. And she's a very good character. She's smart. She has a complicated history with her version of Doctor Strange that kind of makes it a little tense between her and our Doctor Strange. She has a lot of relevance to the plot. And really, I was just surprised by all of that. What's up, guys? I'm sitting here editing the video and realized that I never shouted out my boy Wong. Benedict Wong once again killed it. Phase Wong continues in the MCU as he keeps showing up in almost every movie, bringing a hell of a good performance and always making me smile when he comes up on screen. Which brings me to my next thing that I liked, which is kind of an interesting thing to talk about, but hey, might as well. Marvel's marketing team has been killing it lately. For No Way Home, they did a great job of showing us just enough to get everybody interested, but keeping the real surprises for the movie. And I feel like this one did no different. Yeah, people might think that it gives away a lot going into the trailer and seeing a few teased cameos or everything. It doesn't even scratch the surface of how crazy this movie gets and the different surprises that it holds. And I really just applaud Disney and Marvel's marketing team for holding back and not giving us literally everything in the trailer like other studios tend to do. And they also definitely didn't showcase just how much this was going to be a Raimi film. It still is held back in certain spots. It has a PG-13 rating, but in other spots, it pushes that PG-13 rating as far as it can go. Like, I'm honestly surprised that Disney allowed so many things as they did in this movie. I also love the music. Danny Elfman once again teamed up with Sam Raimi to give us a score that's triumphant in parts, but also kind of a little scary and tense when it needs to be, while feeling very much like it belongs in a Sam Raimi movie. That being said though, this is not a perfect movie, and though I loved it as a Raimi movie and loved a lot of individual parts, there are some things that didn't work and bring it down from being truly great. This is definitely an instance where this movie is more style over substance, and it seems like they focus more on Raimi's direction than on the actual story itself. They dropped a ton of plot threads that they could have continued. Where's White Vision from the end of WandaVision? He isn't mentioned once in this movie. Where's our version of Baron Mordo? His whole thing at the end credit scene of the first Doctor Strange was the fact that he was giving up the life of sorcery and was going on a mission to kill sorcerers. And we see nothing about that in this movie. And all we're given is a throwaway line implying that Doctor Strange and Mordo fought off screen, which is just really disappointing. And I'm sick of Marvel throwing plot threads out the window by either handling them off screen or just dropping them completely. So that was a little disappointing to not really see much more of a continuation from the first movie. Now for the next thing that I didn't like. Okay, so I'm just gonna come out and say America Chavez is probably my least favorite Marvel Comics character. Every single thing that she's been in, I thought she's been very annoying and really not that great of a character to begin with. Here, they did a really good job of changing that. They made her much more tolerable. She's not annoying, she's not in your face about everything. I actually liked when she was on screen, and she does have a bit of an emotional arc, but the issue with her character is that she doesn't go much farther than that. They really just kind of made her a MacGuffin, and when she's not doing that or making a silly joke here or there, she's kind of just spouting exposition. So if they had maybe given her a little bit more time, maybe made this movie 2.5 hours instead of 2 hours, maybe we could have gotten some more development from her and made her feel like more of a character that deserved to be there. But with her multiversal powers and her relevance to the plot, she still made for a decent character, and she's much better than she is in the comics, so I applaud the writers for that. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce her name, but the girl that plays her does a pretty good job. So yeah, definitely a tolerable character, a huge step up from the comics, but I just wish she had a little bit more. Bringing it back to the style over substance thing, I'll talk about the story a second more. It feels like the story could have gone in a lot of different places, but they kind of kept it to more of a straightforward narrative than I was expecting going into this movie. I kind of expected them to hop from universe to universe every 5 minutes, get bombarded by a bunch of cameos, whatever. Really, they only visit a few universes, but the things that they do there, they take full advantage of Sam Raimi's directing and cinematography and everything to make it exciting, even though the story itself is pretty straightforward and doesn't introduce any huge stakes or anything that really changes the MCU in a groundbreaking way yet. Hey, me again. Now, I said that this movie doesn't really change a whole lot for the MCU. That's not totally true. It does talk a lot and drop a lot of hints and knowledge about certain things that if you're familiar with the comics and familiar with multiversal logic from the comics and secret wars and stuff like that, they'll probably be exciting to you. If the word incursion means anything to you, that's probably going to be a pretty big exciting thing for you in the movie. But that being said, it kind of takes away from Doctor Strange's individual story a little bit, which is why I kind of had a bit of a problem with it, even though it was pretty cool to see those Easter eggs dropped and know that that stuff is coming in the future. They definitely focus more on the action, the horror, the visuals, the surprises, and the performances more about the story and the overarching story with the MCU, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, depending on who you ask. My last complaint about this movie is that even though I love Sam Raimi's movies and I've seen them all many times and am always excited for a new one to come out, one of the Raimi-isms that sometimes grates on me a little bit is his willingness to go full into camp and cheesiness with some things. Here, that came through a lot with the dialogue. The dialogue works for a lot of the scenes, but there's a few parts where I thought the lines were a little cringe-inducing. Even when they're delivered by A-list actors like Rachel McAdams, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Elizabeth Olsen, they still, almost all of them gets at least one line that when you hear it, you're just kind of like, ooh, that was cheesy. That probably needed to be punched up a little bit. Thankfully, there was only a couple lines of those here and there, and for the most part, the writing is pretty solid. Honestly, this movie throws a lot at you, but it works more so than it doesn't. And if you're a horror movie fan in any capacity, especially someone that enjoys Sam Raimi's filmography, you're probably gonna love this movie. I would definitely recommend it. You may wanna see it on your own before you take kids to see it though. I could probably handle this as a kid, but I know that kids nowadays don't get exposed to as many intense things as the ratings have gotten stronger and enforce more, and there's more content censorship out there. But I'm really just amazed and happy with how far they let Sam Raimi go with this movie while still keeping it PG-13. But there are a few things in there that might disturb little kids, so just keep that in mind. Overall though, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness does way more right than it does wrong, and I really enjoyed the film. So I would definitely recommend it, especially for those of you that are into horror or Sam Raimi. That's it. There's my thoughts on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. If you like this video, please give me a like, please comment and share the video, maybe even subscribe if you want. It's all down there below the video. I really appreciate all the help. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.